An increase in arrest quotas shakes the immigrant community. The Point starts right now. Congressman Dan Goldman has seen it with his own eyes. Masked immigration agents arresting asylum seekers as the Trump administration increases its daily quotas. So first of all, you confronted them, some ICE agents, in the lobby of the building where your office is located. Tell me exactly what you saw.
Well, there were about a dozen plainclothes ICE agents, many who had masks ready to put on, waiting for immigrants coming out of their regularly scheduled court appearances. Now, these are people seeking legal status here the right way, appearing in court, doing everything that they are told they should do in order to come here legally. And what's happening is these ICE agents are waiting, and their lawyers are dismissing the case. So their asylum claims go away. They come downstairs from the courtroom, having no idea really what the impact of that is. And then you have these plainclothes agents arresting them to go into expedited removal, to remove them with a different authority. And I asked them, I said to them, what is the point here? Are you just trying to tally more arrests? I didn't get any real response. And then I said to them, why are you wearing masks? I was a federal prosecutor for 10 years. I worked with ICE agents. I worked with law enforcement agents. I never saw any of them wear masks. This is brand new. And the question is, if everything is legitimate and proper, why are you wearing masks to hide your face?
Well, you know, it's sort of interesting to me that they would be wearing masks. Now, the stated reason from Homeland Security is that they're afraid of being doxxed. In other words, that people would reveal personal information about them on the internet. But to me, it seems ironic that on the one hand, the Trump administration is going after people on college campuses for wearing masks, but then says it's okay if its own ICE agents wear masks. Can you talk to me about that?
It's the height of hypocrisy. Now, look, I think protesters wearing masks creates a more dangerous situation, and I think it's a legitimate issue. But you can't require Columbia University to ban masks in order to get federal funding while you turn around and you have federal government law enforcement agents wearing masks. It is the height of hypocrisy, but it also really reflects something underneath, which is the cruelty and the fear and the terror and the anti-foreigner sentiment that this administration is moving forward with, and they know that it's not favored by many, which is why they're worried about being seen. But that's not who we are. That's not who this country has ever been. My grandmother came through Ellis Island. That's where we are, chasing the American dream. If you commit a crime, you should be deported, 100%. But these people are doing things the right way, and they are getting punished for it by the federal government.
Well, what about the fear factor? Here you are, an immigrant, you're coming out of a courthouse, a courtroom, and somebody in a mask approaches you and arrests you. I mean, doesn't that heighten your worry, your fear, and make it even more difficult for these people?
Well, for sure. But it also creates really perverse incentives, because these are the people going to court, doing it the right way, and they're getting picked up and sent out. So other people are now saying, must react to this and say, well, if I go to court, I'm going to get picked up and kicked out. So I'm not going to go to court, and I'm going to go further underground, and I'm not going to pay taxes through my work visa, and I'm not going to pay Social Security, and I'm going to go underneath the surface, which creates more desperation, which creates more danger, and ultimately makes our communities far less safe by going after exactly the opposite people that they said they were going to go after. None of these people are criminals. None of them are murderers or child rapists. None of that. These are people trying to do it the right way. And Stephen Miller, who is, you know, Donald Trump's right-hand man on immigration stuff, and Donald Trump are ratcheting up their quota of arrests to an ungodly number.
Well, they actually went from 1,800 a day to 3,000 a day, which I think may have some relationship, I guess, to the fact that there's been this increase in arrests in New York. I mean, do you think that's true?
I think it's absolutely true. This is a new policy within the last week of targeting those people who are not criminals, who are here, often with families, often with work visas and on the books jobs, just to jack up the numbers.
So at the end of the week, Homeland Security came up with a new memo about sanctuary city laws, and it's targeting really, well, it targets every place in New York and New Jersey, Connecticut, but actually around the country. And it has a list of counties, cities, including New York City, by the way, that says you have to change your law or else, because you should protect American citizens, not, quote, violent aliens. What's going on, and are our sanctuary city laws under attack?
100% they're under attack. And the way that the federal government is doing it is saying to cities, if you don't comply with our policy and our approach to immigration, then you will not get federal funding. And there are lots of reasons why you would have sanctuary cities. It doesn't preclude coordination for convicted criminals. That is permitted between the city, the state, and the federal government. And those are the people that they were ostensibly going after. That's what we were promised. And even in that statement, they're talking about violent aliens. No, no. There's already coordination. Sanctuary cities do not protect criminals from being deported by federal immigration officers.
So do you think that this threat, the threat of losing federal aid, which could be billions of dollars, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, will work in getting cities in our area to change their sanctuary city laws? Well,
I hope not. There is a lawsuit already that some of the state's attorney general, including Attorney General Tish James, have filed to say this is effectively extortion and coercion, and it's not included in the legislation that appropriated this funding, so that the executive branch, the administration, cannot add an additional requirement. So I hope the courts, take that very seriously. But this federal funding is critical to cities and states, including New York, and it is a big hammer that they have to be contend with.
Look, you're a former federal prosecutor. If you could talk directly to President Trump about this policy that you saw firsthand, what would you say to him, and how would you try to convince him that you don't agree with it?
Well, I have learned you're not going to pull at any heartstrings of President Trump. So explaining to him how he's terrorizing entire communities is not going to move him. What should move him is how does it fit in with what his objectives are? And if his objectives are to remove violent or otherwise criminal illegal aliens or illegal undocumented immigrants here, then why is he going after the people who are following the proper procedures? Because what he's going to do is get the exact opposite result. He's going to push more people into crime. He's going to create a less safe environment, and he's going to push people underground. And that's not what we want. We want people to go through the process the right way, and what their case on asylum will succeed or fail as it does through the law, and that's what we want. And so what he is actually doing is undermining his own objectives.
So what effect is this going to have on the New York City economy? I mean, immigrants play a major role in numerous industries in New York City and in New York State, from the home health care industry, the hospitality industry, agriculture. I mean, if you lose these people to this, who's going to do those jobs? Well,
we're going to find out. And certainly those warnings have been made to the administration over and over and over, including by large Republican business people who hire and need the labor from from immigrants who are coming over just trying to seek work and benefit from the economy that we have. So we'll find out if there are Americans who are willing to do those jobs. Traditionally, that hasn't been the case, and it's going to have a significant impact if not.
But why would you want to kill the golden goose? I mean, New York City and New York State are major contributors in tax revenue to the federal government. We give a lot more than we get back. But if these people are not being part of the economy, it tanks New York City's economy, it tanks the state's economy, and it affects the tax revenue that goes to the federal government. How does that make sense?
Well, it also affects the tax revenue because many of these undocumented immigrants have work visas because their asylum claims are pending. So they are paying taxes. I think it's over $9 billion a year of income taxes paid by undocumented immigrants going through the asylum system. So it hurts the economy on any number of different levels, but that's not what this is about. This is a culture war. This is an effort to implement the Great Replacement theory, to go back to the 1950s with white supremacy. This is creating a culture war within our country that Donald Trump thinks is a political winner for him. But really what it comes down to is it's just fundamentally contrary to our base values.
Congressman, we're going to have to leave it right there for now, but our conversation continues right after the show on our streaming channel, CBS News New York. I'm joined now by Marada Wada, President and CEO of the New York Immigration Coalition. And I have to tell you, with the spate of arrests that have been going on in New York, starting with the arrest of that 20-year-old high school student from the Bronx, and up until the last week of arrests and arrests and arrests of people who were going to immigration courts, what's going on in the city, and what are you going to do to stop it?
You know, what we're seeing right now is the Trump administration continue to flagrantly disregard the law. They are violating people's due right process. And as you just mentioned, Dylan, who's a high school student who was living in the Bronx, supporting his family, going to school, and then working part-time to help his mom pay the bills, was just snatched at the courthouse and then disappeared. What we're seeing is the Trump administration continue to make these moves, which we believe are illegal, in targeting immigrants across the country, and now doing so in courthouses where people are going to where they're showing up, where they're supposed to go to court and actually fight their case in court.
But I guess the question is, what effect is this going to have on the immigrant community? Are they going to stop going to court? Are they going to stop going to school? Are they going to stop going to churches and hospitals because they're afraid?
Yeah, I think the immigrant community across the state of New York, not just here in the city, is incredibly fearful in this moment.
Are they hiding?
There are people who are taking, unfortunately falling back deeper into the shadows. What this Trump administration is doing right now, especially with targeting courts and immigrants going to court, is it's sort of a catch-22 and a double-edged sword at the same time. You're supposed to go to court to fight for your case, and when people are doing that, they're getting detained and put in removal proceedings. And then at the same time, if you don't go to court, you're put in you're ordered removed and deported. So the Trump administration is making this an incredibly difficult moment for immigrant communities and continues to make lives of immigrants across this country incredibly hard right now.
So here's the thing. Most of these people have been showing up for their asylum hearings without a lawyer. Do you think it would help if they show up with a lawyer so that the Trump administration can't change the dynamics for them?
Absolutely, and I think that that's why we've been fighting for, at the city level and at the state level, access to representation. We want to make sure that in this city budget that's happening right now in New York City, that they invest even more deeply into immigration legal services so that people like Dylan, who showed up to court without a lawyer, can always show up to court with a lawyer to make sure that they're fighting for their ability to stay here in this great country.
Do you think a lawyer would prevent the ICE agents from just summarily arresting them and deporting them, or trying to deport them?
You know, ICE is operating in a very rogue way. Lawyers do help. You have a 10 times more likelihood of winning your case with a lawyer than when you don't. So it is helpful to have a lawyer, but it won't stop ICE from doing what ICE does.
So I need to ask you, the Homeland Security Department late in the week came out with a new memo warning sanctuary cities and sanctuary states in the metropolitan area, actually around the entire country, saying change and revise your laws or else. And so what effect will this memo have on places like New York City, which is a sanctuary city, and so many other places in New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut that are sanctuary cities? Are they going to be under threat to change their laws, or the federal government will come after them?
This is another attack that the Trump administration is waging on immigrant communities and specifically sanctuary communities. And I think that in this moment, what we need to do is continue to fight for not just the laws that we have on the books, but to expand them. There is case law. The Supreme Court has also had mentioned that under the 10th Amendment of the United States, we are allowed as a city and a state to create laws that are in alignment with federal law. And our sanctuary laws are that, right? They are public safety measures. And they say that regardless of the situation, we're going to keep our local resources or our state resources to that. We're not going to do work that's outside of it. And we're going to work with the federal government when they have a judicial warrant. And if they don't have one, then they're not obligated to do so.
So here we have a situation when President Trump, then candidate Trump, ran for office. He said that we needed to close the borders and deport people who were, quote, criminals and who had committed violent acts. But it seems that the people who are being deported now are not criminals. They haven't committed violent acts. So how is that acceptable? How is that allowed?
It's not acceptable, and it's incredibly inhumane to see the administration attacking immigrants in the way that they are. They have not gone after the quote-unquote hardened criminals that they were going to go after. They're going after people who are doing the right thing and showing up to court, going to their check-ins, people who are working and just trying to make a living. So this administration continues to run incredibly dangerously close to violating the law. And in many cases already, we've seen that they've not listened to the courts either, and the decisions that the courts have administered, and continue to run afoul of the laws that we have all known to be our American laws and the values that we all uphold as a democracy.
Well, what would you like to see Mayor Adams do? Is there anything that New York City can do to stop this? I mean, we are a sanctuary city. We're upholding this. The city is upholding it and keeping to the letter of the law. But is there something more that can be done to protect the immigrant community here?
Well, one thing the mayor can do is stop trying to walk around our sanctuary laws as he is with Rikers and the agreement he's come up with ICE and DHS. And he can continue to actually try to invest in immigration legal services as we've been asking him to. We've also seen him not really fight for New Yorkers, like Dylan, who's just taken a high school student here in our city, just last week was taken at his immigration hearing. But there's another student, his name is Merville. He's another Bronx resident whose black bag snatched off the street and then sent and disappeared to El Salvador, which is incredibly horrendous. So we need him to step up in this moment and start fighting for New York.
But how should he do that? When I asked him about it earlier in the week, he basically said that the sanctuary city laws prevent him from cooperating with ICE or going after ICE.
Well, we've already seen instances where the city and the NYPD specifically have been colluding with the immigration enforcement, which violates our local laws. If there's no judicial warrant, then there shouldn't be any collusion. But what the mayor is allowing is for NYPD to participate in family separation and harming our communities.
Can he get Dylan back?
I think that every voice matters in this moment, and he should raise his voice and fight for Dylan to be brought back to his family, his mother, his siblings, his community, and his school. That's who's also fighting for him. Yesterday, we had a press conference and a rally at the Department of Education at Tweed Building, and hundreds of people came out to demand Dylan's return and for his freedom.
And it's touched a nerve.
Yes, absolutely. And we're going to continue to push for not just Dylan, but others that we know who are being unjustly detained and disappeared.
So thank you for joining me. And we're going to have to leave it right there for now, but we'll be right back. Thank you for joining me. Even in these tough economic times, retail therapy is still a thing for some New Yorkers. I can't resist buying earrings, especially at street fairs. Others also admit that they have too much stuff. They're weighing in on your point. Do you think Americans have too much stuff?
Oh my goodness, probably.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Here in New York, yes, definitely.
I'm not going to judge other people. Probably. That's judging by saying that.
Oh, way too much. Living in New York, you see it on the sidewalk every day.
How do you know if you have too much stuff?
You have a lot of things that you're not using that just sit there for years.
When you start running out of space and you can't figure out where to put it.
I definitely have too much stuff.
How do you know whether you have too much stuff?
When I run out of closet space.
Have you run out of closet space?
With my daughter living in the apartment in the past, yes, I have.
Well, I live in a studio apartment, so if I had too much stuff, I wouldn't be able to fit it in.
I totally hear you.
I know I don't have too much stuff because all my stuff fits in my closets. And in New York, you have small closets, so you can't have too much stuff.
So if it fits in your closet, then you're good. What can you do about it?
Pay attention to your wallet. Don't overexert yourself. And just take care of your health and wealth.
Be conscious about what you're buying and when and why.
Give it away.
Give it away. Good idea. I should take your advice on that. Do you think the majority of Americans will ever be minimalists?
I do not think so, no, sadly.
Because we like stuff.
I think so, and I think that's just our culture and our economy and what we rely on.
As long as things are easy to get a hold of, people will always buy it.
We live in a country that has a lot, they can offer a lot, and it makes people want a lot.
Will they ever become minimalists? Possibly.
What would it take?
The shift that's going on in the world, finances, AI, not needing things because robots do it all.
It will take a while. It will take a long time to get to this point because we get addicted to cheap stuff, and it's very difficult to get rid of it.
I mean, look around. I think it's nice to have a distraction, and I think sometimes stuff provides that distraction.
It's not likely in the near future, but it would be nice to think that we did start to think twice before we bought stuff.
Do you think Americans will ever become minimalists?
No, I don't think so. It's not in their DNA. I mean, we're capitalists. I mean, I try not to be one, but innately we are.